Hello, viewers! Welcome back to Take to the Street, where I, Nitron Street Rider, thoroughly analyze known animated characters from the Splatoon SFM and GMOD community, and break down their appearance, personality traits, a timeline of events based on their screen time and actions in the series, and power sets and skills. This time we delve into the mind of a classic as far as villains go. From creator Alex Spider, dating back as early as 2015, we have the enigmatic, sadistic, sarcastic head of a very special military faction. She's cunning, she's wily, she's all out busted. She's the Dark Squid! The Dark Squid heads the Dark Octo Squid Army, abbreviated as DOSA, acting as their commander-in-chief and mercenary leader. She's often known for going out in the field and getting dirty work done herself, accompanied by a squad of bodyguards. However, despite how active of a threat she is, we actually know very little about her. So if that's the case, what is it that we do know about this mysterious inkling? The Dark Squid is about the height of an average Inkling, and her appearance mirrors that of a common law enforcement agent, and her gear and ink is a pitch black color. Her eyes are slate gray, and her skin is quite fair, accenting her darker colors with a stark contrast. Her jacket is a Generation 1 standard issue Squidbeak Splatoon jersey with a deep gray sweater beneath it, often sporting a cape to make herself look cooler. Her shoes are a Generation 1 Hero Runners, also dyed black. The glowing LEDs on the sides often seen as red. She doesn't change her appearance much, unlike Yuma from the previous episode who required more upgrades as her foes got stronger. But it's an appearance that, while bland on the outside, is iconic and imposing. I'm not quite sure about the Dark Squid's origins, as her files and birth certificates haven't yet been tracked down, but I actually have a bit of a theory on where she might have come from. It all begins back in the video titled Squid Hangout. While the overarching threat might have come from then new character Octoru, Dark Squid's role on screen was far longer but also much smaller. Somehow she had allies among the Octarians, when she assaulted Green with Octoling foot soldiers. This leads me to believe that she was just a normal Inkling enjoying their day before being abducted and then corrupted by Octavio. Relatively simple, sure. However, one thing does remain certain. Ever since her conception, she's been hell-bent on mischief and militaristic dominance, and getting a hold of Green. In her first escapade, the Dark Squid doesn't show up until the latter half of the episode, and Spider was very vague regarding her overall character. Apparently given intel on him by Octoru and instructed to bring him in, she shows up, directs the Octarian forces to attack Green, and sits back to watch the action. However, even from day one, Spider made something incredibly evident about the Dark Squid's abilities. The Dark Squid can throw hands! She's got obscene amounts of physical strength. She was able to go toe-to-toe with Green even when all the Octolings weren't able to do so much as phase him. Even when teamed up, her tactical combat awareness was able to pick up on Blue's ambush and toss Green into him. Only because of a lapse in her guard, while she was gloating over Blue's and Green's fallen bodies, was the then captive Orange able to take advantage, delivering a hit square to her jaw, knocking her out. Shell, even the fallen ones couldn't believe it. This new threat had been taken care of in one fell punch. I can only imagine that she didn't take that too well, because the next time we see her, she was more furious than ever. About time I got to talking about this. It was in this 3-part miniseries starring Spider's fan-favorite soda-drinking, fun-loving, constantly in trouble side character, Ankara, that the Dark Squid really began to cement herself. Sure, she doesn't show up until the second episode, but then the first episode was meant to cement Green's and Ankara's future friendship and camaraderie. Regardless, she shows up as the duo were spending an eventful day together, displaying her newfound strength as she sends Green careening into a lamppost and Ankara into a dumpster bin. Shows you just how much she's not playing around. So she's able to capture Green and has him sent straight to the lab at her base. There she would elaborate on her endgame, which involved assimilating not just Green, but the whole Inkling population, using her powerful dark ink concoctions that turn out to be mixed with hot tar, capable of mind control and enhanced strength. Turns out that she also wanted an ink sample from him to increase her own strength even further, to the point of becoming unstoppable. After this, she'd take her leave, leaving Green essentially helpless. Meanwhile, coincidence hits gold, and Ankara suits up and heads to Dulce's new undercover base, following a tracking signal attached to Green's phone. It was here that Ankara would stumble upon something particularly frightening. These Inklings were experimenting with plasmatic ink weaponry, several times stronger than a normal shooter. After procuring one of these mighty weapons for herself and mopping the floor with the unfortunate soldiers that walked in on her, she would then go on to free the captive, passing down the weapon to him in order to aid in the getaway. Someone had to be the bearer of bad news to the boss, so one of the surviving soldiers went up to report to her, interrupting her cartoon binge-watching session. Anyway, in a fit of outrage, she set the entire base to red alert and set out to get the captives back herself. It's here where we're born witness to just how much Spider has grown as an animator, as this next fight between the Green and the Dark Squid is so much better choreographed. Again, like with Squid Hangout, they were dead even, until the opposition was able to get the upper hand, and she began absolutely molly-whopping the boy all over the place. Just as she was about to do the deed, unfortunately, Ankara showed up and stole the sample for herself, making a quick getaway as the furious Inkling set her sights on her. Dark Squid does end up getting the Green haphazard Inkling, and as she injects the supposed sample into her system, something unexpected happens. Ankara had swapped the samples, and Dark Squid had injected Ankara's own leak tendency samples into her bloodstream, causing a rather awkward situation. Instructing her soldiers to get her out of there as she needed to leave, and badly, might I add, she was once again defeated, arguably more humiliated than last time. I mean, I don't blame her. Getting socked in the jaw the first time and having a plan completely fall apart on you the next? I would be pretty pissed, too. On second thought, maybe we should just move on. After Ankara's ink venture, we don't end up seeing the Dark Squid for a long time. However, that isn't to say that she wasn't busy. After all, it wasn't like her whole army fell victim to the zombie virus outbreak that Ankara had to deal with in her own miniseries. She was as good as alone, fighting off zombies wandering the streets as a forced outcast. Fortunately, she'd stumble on the one piece of hope that she has: a rookie Inkling boy by the name of Inko. She'd end up saving Inko from a small horde, hear of her army's fate, and then follow him to the point of exhaustion to the one remaining squad of her army. And what a group it is. It's a Left 4 Dead cast, consisting of a Zoe and a Lewis squid, a Francis octo, while also having a few grab bags, a Duke Nukem octoling, a Tracer inkling, a mostly silent octoling, and one more inkling whose voice actor reference I don't quite get. Whatever the case, the Dark Squid and Inko reunite with this squad and meet up, now traveling as a full group, albeit with very limited resources. They wind up in a deserted section of the Mako Mart for a brief respite and arguably a pretty funny bit where the Dark Squid creates a GMOD replication of the infamous Wednesday Addams dance. Meanwhile, her crew searches around for resources, getting into less than evil shenanigans. But arguably, the best bit of this whole video section also serves as the Dark Squid's most impressive physical feat. She ends up soloing a massive zombified Kohozuna, one of the mightiest King Salmonids, with one splashdown. This alone might cement the Dark Squid as one of the most physically strong villains in the Splatoon community, not counting anime tier villains. Following this up, I can only imagine that this ragtag squad found their old base, but what is in fact known is that the Dark Squid got into a business party with a particularly monstrous cohort. Violet Vamp, queen of the undead legions of the bloodthirsty. This was the correspondent of the Dark Squid's latest evil machination. Her appearance is that of a stereotypical vampire, having deep purple eyes and slightly longer fangs than most cephalopods. This inkling, octoling, whatever she is, a vampiress, is capable of infecting anyone she bites and sucks blood from, turning them into a monstrous version of themselves with the same bloodlust. She wreaked havoc in Splatsville the nights of Splatoween, turning many inklings and octolings into her savage slaves, tasking them with, as the Dark Squid desired, the bringing in of Green and his crew. A side note, I'm starting to think she's obsessed with Green as Yuma is with Meika. Unfortunately, poor Ankara would fall victim directly to the fangs of Violet, causing a very real problem among the crew. They now had a feral beast who wanted to kill them out of their friend. Fortunately, through the calculations of the cunning thief idol group Deep Cut, they figured out that in order to turn everyone in Splatsville back to normal, they had to terminate Violet directly. Both Green, his crew, and his Octarian counterpart, as well as Octo Inkara, travel to the manor and deal with the vampire in either tense or hilarious fashions. And once again, I can only imagine that the Dark Squid didn't take that too well. Okay, she clearly didn't take it well at all, because she decided to go after Green herself without a plan, bringing along her whole squad to counteract the factor of constantly being teamed up on, leading up to her defeat. They'd meet at the reef, intense battles ensuing. While she might have missed the fact that the whole crew would be there, she wowed me yet again by another physical feat, catching the ink rocket fired by the scout-like Green Yellow, returning it to sender to the shock of all in attendance.
We are screwed!
Her battle prowess would see her outsmart and all-maneuver all the various team-ups and traps. Clearly she had learned from the past few times, and wasn't about to give the Spider Squad any quarters. Then, the Dark Squid's crew arrives to pick one-on-ones with the gang. Knowing they were outmanned and outplayed, the crew splits up to see if they can get away from them. However, In true dose of fashion, they would each find their man or woman and engage in combat. And who else would the Dark Squid find but Green and Inkara? The rematch of the century was about to begin, and that's where we remain to this day. The Dark Squid, as said before, is one of the strongest physical fighters that Inkopolis has ever known, particularly due to her high amounts of battle experience and heightened senses. The power of her dark ink might contribute to that, as she said she felt far stronger than she ever did as a normal inkling. She's cunning, known for elaborate traps and ambushes, only matched by her high levels of mobility. Able to leap over walls normally where other inklings would need to ink up the side and swim, as Inko showed. However, the one weakness that I see from her is that she gets prone to overconfidence, and this often leads to her detraction, leading her to either be outwitted or overpowered. As far as cameos go, I don't actually see her much outside of mainline Splatoon, but this does give me the chance to talk about the various fan designs that some talented artists have given her. For the most part, her design philosophy has remained relatively the same, either being more modern or more complex, as her current one is actually an incredible baseline. For instance, we have the design posted by GMOD Splatoon TSA, where he gave her a frickin' eye patch, as well as a different hairstyle. Gone are her long central tentacles, instead replaced with wider bangs. The next one I want to talk about is posted by deviant splat artist RaveDog64, which improves on the militaristic ranking she displays. The eye patch returns and her cape is a crimson red. Her usual jacket is replaced with an imperial trench coat, as black as her normal design, and her hero runners were replaced with Neo-Octarian knee-high boots. Unique, but not groundbreaking. That cake goes to Splatuber Mr. Riot. This design is not only modernized, including mecha claws and a dark dress, but it's also unique in the sense that it carries its own identity without being too far from the source material. Not only that, but he made a few cameo shorts for the Dark Squid, including a recreation from the movie Hercules, and a crossover with a few other GMOD SFM villains like 2 Devs Anagram and SMG3 from Glitch Studios. Here she leads that gang of villains into evil shenanigans with some of the worst synergy of any villain group ever, only keeping them in line through fear tactics. So, that does it for the Dark Squid. Strong, funny, and dangerous at her best. And the worst part? She remains at large. So, as long as you don't cross her, or try to be a hero, you could potentially stay alive as well. But you never can tell with someone like her waiting in the wings, ready to cause some chaos. However, there are still other villains out there for us to unravel and explore. So until next time, stay out of the streets at night, because you never know who might be out there.